Welcome to round one, Huamin versus Fanny. So on bottom, we have Huamin playing a match combo deck. So essentially his deck is trying to play Hufflepuff match and then win that match through using Seamus's extra action and some damage cards. And then with the prize from the match, draw back the cards used to win the match and then play another one and do it again, rinse and repeat. And up top, we have Fanny, and they are playing a very traditional McGonagall creature deck. So get some creatures out, do some damage, make it a repeated thing, and just put a lot of pressure on their opponent. Good luck to both players. So in Huamin's hand, we see that Hufflepuff match. That is going to be the main piece of the combo. They do have a Quidditch lesson in play, so that Quidditch lesson will let them play the match for 1 power, which is great. A quick reminder on both of their starting characters. Huamin's starting character, Seamus Finnegan, requires you to discard 2 cards from your hand in order to get 1 extra action, whereas McGonagall's ability allows you to discard an opponent's adventure from play once per game and provides 1 transfiguration power. So Fanny starts by playing a Letters from No One, and this is going to restrict what Huamin can do. And it looks like Huamin is diving right into solving Letters from No One, which requires you to discard 5 cards from your hand in order to solve it. And the prize is that Huamin gets to draw 2 cards. So he does, but then he also draws some extra ones because some of the cards he discarded were Revelation keyword cards, which when they are discarded from your hand, you get to draw a card. So he didn't really go down too many cards in hand. That's a really great way to start out the game. Almost makes Fanny's first turn a little useless there. That was just a lucky move on Huamin's part to have 2 revelations in hand. So we have both players, Huamin starting his turn 1 with 2 lessons and Fanny with 2 lessons as well on their turn 2. A little bit of a setback for Fanny having gone first and waiting until turn 2 to play 2 lessons with that first batch feeling a little like it doesn't really matter, but it's okay. So Huamin gets out Hufflepuff match, so that is again the card that he is trying to win with in a combo. So in order to win the match, you need to do 8 damage to your opponent, and then the prize is that you may draw 5 cards as the winner, and your opponent takes 5 damage. Matches are unique in this game, kind of like a location, because either player can win a match. It's really the first one to do that 8 damage to their opponent. Every match, most matches, have a different win con from each other, so you're going to be doing different things. A lot of them require different amounts of damage. Some of them require hand discard or playing a number of creatures or items, various things. And their prizes also change. Hufflepuff match is a little unique because its prize, if you're playing in the build that Huamin is playing in, essentially allows it to replace the cards you're spending to solve it. So you're not really down in your hand and you're kind of staying on par with your opponent. So Huamin plays Hagrid Needs Help, and Hagrid Needs Help would do 8 damage to his opponent if Fanny decided to solve it. Fanny instead chose to use McGonagall's ability to just get rid of the adventure. Hagrid Needs Help also gives Fanny 1 less action per turn, so getting rid of it as soon as possible is a great move on Fanny's part so that they're not restricted to actions. So we have Fanny playing a baby acromantula. Playing a baby is one of the memes in the community, and so essentially you play a baby, you go search your deck, you grab another baby, you put it into your hand. And you can have up to 4 of the same card in your deck, so you can just keep playing them over and over until you have all 4 babies in play. And then they do 1 damage per turn and they have 1 health. It's a way to kind of swarm and thin your deck a little bit. Huamin luckily drew another Hagrid Needs Help, and he plays it. So now this is something that Fanny is going to have to solve, which is going to hurt. So either Fanny only has one action for the rest of the game every turn, or they solve it and then take 8 damage from Hagrid Needs Help, take 5 more damage from Hufflepuff Match, and then Huamin will draw 5 cards and really be no more down than he is now. This is definitely a difficult position for Fanny to be in. It's a rock and a hard place. Depending on what creatures are in their hand, they might be able to play some with just 4 power. And in theory, if Huamin doesn't have other ways to solve this match easily, Fanny could just keep playing creatures and win by just playing creatures and avoiding the match and avoiding Hagrid Needs Help. And potentially even going as far as winning the match if his creatures can do 8 damage. So we'll see what Fanny can do with this. It's definitely an interesting position for Huamin to be in and an interesting position for Fanny to be in. Looks like Huamin starts by maybe discarding 2 cards for an extra action. He drew another Hufflepuff Match, which is great for when this one is solved, but he really doesn't want Fanny to win that match. So Fanny did 3 damage from their bat and their baby Acromantula after they drew for turn, and then they used the action to play a black bat, which when it comes in does 2 damage to their opponent. So that is going to let Fanny win the match. So now Fanny gets to do 5 damage to their opponent and then draw 5 cards. This game is shifting a little bit into Fanny's favor. They have creatures in play. They could kind of avoid the damage from Hagrid Needs Help until the match was solved, which is what they just did. They won the match, and then they solved Hagrid Needs Help. And now their creatures are really just able to do damage every turn, and they don't have to worry too much. So we'll see what happens. Huamin plays another Hufflepuff Match and then discards 2 cards to Seamus for 1 more action, and then plays a Destroyed Broom and a potion spell, which will, I believe, do 8 damage together and let him win Hufflepuff Match, and then use that match to do 5 damage to his opponent and then draw 5 cards himself, refilling his hand. So that right there is essentially how you want the combo to go. Play the match action 1, discard 2 cards to Seamus, and then have 2 more actions, play 2 things that do 4 damage each, or however you get to 8 or more damage, win the match, refill your hand, be ready to go for the next turn. So Fanny's deck is coming online really well with those creatures. He's going to do 5 damage a turn. Huamin's deck is also coming on. Unfortunately, I believe that's 3 Hufflepuff Matches in their discard pile. They do have a Quaffle in hand, which will let them draw or search for 1 more if there is a 4th still in their deck, but I'm not sure if they are running 4. In theory they are. Maybe there's another match they're running that they could get instead. But with only 14 cards left in deck, definitely getting down to that point where they need to decide what's going on. So Huamin plays a card which does some damage. Fanny is unfortunately still up at 24 cards, so I'm not sure if Huamin's going to be able to pull this out, especially because Huamin will take a bunch of damage on Fanny's turn from all of those creatures that are in play. So I think there was a small misplay. Fanny had played Mandrake, which costs 5 power, but Huamin's Destroyed Broom makes McGonagall not provide a power for a turn, so Fanny only had 4 power in play, so I believe that they just took Mandrake back into their hand. So Huamin finds, wow, that was a really great place. Huamin uses Quaffle to find their last Hufflepuff Match, plays it, and then I believe discards 2 for a 3rd action to Seamus, which allows him to play a Malevolent Mixture, and that would let him win the match, which is 10 damage from Malevolent Mixture, and then I believe another 5 for Fanny having lost the match. So that should be very close to game. Looks like Fanny was able to hold on long enough and then throw out 2 Steel Claws, and Steel Claws say that all of your creatures in play do damage to your opponent. So Fanny essentially did the regular creature damage per turn and then did that 2 more times with 2 Steel Claws. And game 1 goes to Fanny. So those Steel Claws in the end really came through and pushed through that last bit of damage that Fanny needed. Huamin was so close playing Malevolent Mixture and winning Hufflepuff match. Not able to do enough damage to close out that game, but definitely very close. Got Fanny down into the single digits. I think if Huamin can time stuff a little better so that Fanny can't win any of the matches, then Huamin can have the next game. Each player is allowed a 15-card sideboard, so Fanny is looking for probably some sideboard cards that just prevent their opponent from playing spells, potentially discarding matches from play, but considering that Huamin is trying to win matches in 1 turn, discarding them from play is not going to be super effective. So maybe an adventure like Through the Arch or something else that just prevents spells or just reduces spell damage as well. Huamin is probably looking for something that prohibits Fanny from playing creatures or reduces the amount of damage Fanny's creatures can do in a turn. Anything to just combat those creatures being in play. Unfortunately, being in potions and charms, there are not many options for combating creatures. There are a few colorless options, mainly in adventures and then in a character or 2. So we'll see what these players sideboarded in. Huamin again has Hufflepuff match in their starting hand. That's a great start, and has Hagrid Needs Help, so this is very similar to last game. This is a great start for him as long as he can get everything into play. Huamin should be going first in this game, giving him the step up. We also see in his hand he has a 12 Years in Azkaban. That is an event card, so it's a permanent that stays in play, and it essentially prevents 2 damage from whatever is going to damage him. So in terms of creatures, creatures do damage 1 by 1. Granted, they all do it at the same time, but then the player chooses the order in which they do damage. So with a 12 Years in Azkaban in play, Huamin can prevent 2 of that damage from each creature, and then that helps to prevent Fanny from winning the matches. So Huamin plays Hagrid Needs Help, discards 2 cards to Seamus to get a 3rd action, and then plays a Quidditch lesson. This is setting him up well for next turn. Unfortunately, he doesn't have 2 cards in hand that can do 8 damage like he did last game. Hopefully he draws one. If he does, he'll be able to Hufflepuff match, and then if he got more power in play 2 spells that did damage and win the match. It looks like to stop Hagrid Needs Help from being in play, Fanny's going to take the 8 damage and eat it. He is not, it appears, going to draw the 3 cards as the reward for Hagrid Needs Help. He's going to throw out a duel lesson, which will fetch him a lesson later during his next turn, and then he's going to pass the turn. So Huamin plays Hagrid Needs Help, and that requires 2 actions to play, and then passes the turn to Fanny. I'm not sure why he didn't discard 2 cards to also play a Hufflepuff match. Fanny knows what's coming. Fanny knows that Huamin's likely going to play a match and then just sit around and hopefully win the match through Hagrid Needs Help. So it's odd not to get the extra action to play the match right now, but maybe there's a different plan in order to do that. So at the beginning of Fanny's turn, they discard the fetch lesson in play and goes into their deck and pulls out a Transfiguration lesson. And Fanny looks like they're going to use McGonagall to actually solve Hagrid Needs Help. Huamin is kind of in a difficult position because he doesn't have the revelation cards that he had last game in his hand. So if he discards cards, he's not replacing them, which is a little difficult of a position to be in. he does draw a Lucius's Cane. So that is an item that would stay in play, provide a power, and then for every action over 2 that Huamin uses, Cane would do 2 damage to their opponent. So that's going to be great to just to kind of combo with Seamus a bit. So whenever Seamus gives him a 3rd action, Cane will then do 2 damage. So that overall is a pretty great space to be in, and plus it just provides that power. It looks like most of the cards in Huamin's deck actually cap out at 4 power. I believe Malevolent Mixture is at 5. So that extra power may or may not really matter depending on what Huamin draws, but we shall see. Fanny fetches another lesson from that fetch lesson again, this time in Charms. So Fanny does what they did in last game. They played a creature lesson, and then they go to fetch a baby Acromantula again. They use that baby to fetch another baby from their deck. So this gets their game plan going. Next turn, Fanny will likely play a baby, go fetch a baby, play another baby, go fetch the 4th baby, and just have a swarm of spiders in play in order to do some damage. So Huamin plays a lesson and then a quaffle, and the quaffle allows him to go fetch a match from his deck. The quaffle also provides 1 Quidditch power, so Huamin is now up to 4 power, which is great. That puts him in the range of the spells that do 4 damage that he played last game. Unfortunately, he just has 1 of those spells in hand, so he does need to get 1 more, and then he'll be able to just go off with match and win the match. It looks like he's going to discard 2, including a match to Seamus, to play a Lucius's Cane for action 3. At the end of his turn, Cane will see that 3rd action and do 2 damage. Huamin now has 5 power in play, which gets him up to the Malevolent Mixture range. Malevolent Mixture does require a 2 potion lesson discard, which Huamin does not have right now. So we'll have to see if he can draw another potion lesson, and then if he does draw that mixture, and then if he tries to use that to win Hufflepuff match again. So Fanny plays a lesson to get 5 power, and then plays a Cornish Pixie. So this is probably a really smart move. Cornish Pixie is going to allow him to look at his opponent's hand, choose one of those cards, and then put it under Cornish Pixie. And then until Cornish Pixie leaves play, Huamin does not get that card back. So Fanny's going to look at these cards and think, what is the thing that is most punishing for me, that I'm going to have to play around the most, and I'm going to put it under Cornish Pixie. And he chooses the 12 years because 12 years is going to prevent pretty much all the damage that Fanny's creatures are going to be doing right now. That's a really great move just to get that piece out of the way. So Huamin draws for turn and then draws for action 1 and does draw a Star Charge, which is a Revelation card. And then also draws a Fouled. So now he is set up for next turn between the Destroyed Broom and the Fouled. That is 8 damage to win the match in his hand. He has 2 other cards, including a Revelation to discard. He could be looking at a decent amount of damage next turn. It is requiring quite a bit for him to pull all that off in terms of cards in his hand, but it is great. And Fanny comes out and looks like they are playing a Letters from No One, which is going to ruin Huamin's plan. So in order to solve that adventure, Huamin is going to discard 5 cards from their hand, is going to take the prize, and that is to draw 2 more cards, or maybe it's 3 more cards, just to replenish the ones that he just discarded. That was a great move by Fanny just to really disrupt Huamin's plan. So Huamin draws a 12 Years in Azkaban and then plays it, which is great. That's exactly what he wants to do. This is going to allow him to prevent 2 damage per card damaging him during his opponent's turn. So that stops both of Fanny's creatures from doing damage. And it looks like Fanny is then going to play a Picking on Neville. And that is going to allow him to choose 1 of his opponent's cards in play and discard it, unless the opponent chooses 2 of their other cards in play and discards them. I believe that Fanny did choose a 12 Years in Azkaban. That is a difficult choice. Do you get rid of the card that's preventing damage right now, or do you get rid of 2 other cards? Huamin doesn't really have the cards in hand to be able to replenish lessons that well, or other cards in play providing power, so he might just have to let the 12 years die. We'll see what he does. And he does let 12 years go to the discard pile. That's probably the best choice he has. And then Fanny plays a black bat, which does 2 damage upon entering. So this is really great sequencing from Fanny. First, get rid of the card that's going to prevent the damage, picking a Neville, and then play black bat in order to do the damage. That was really great ordering of cards. Huamin is just drawing cards now. His hand is not exactly the best. He does have the Destroyed Broom, which does 4 damage, but I don't believe any of the other spells in his hand will do 4 damage, which means that he needs some other way to win the match. Fanny, meanwhile, doing 4 damage with their creatures, and now they play a Mandrake and another baby Acromantula. Let's see if Fanny has any more babies in deck to go search. And Fanny goes to find another baby Acromantula. That goes to their hand. They've already used 2 actions for this turn between Mandrake and the first baby they played. So next turn they can play another baby Acromantula. Huamin needs something to get rid of all these creatures. And digging a little deeper into their deck, they didn't draw this turn. I believe they still have 2 actions to see if they draw something else. So Huamin is going to play the Hufflepuff match and then discard 2 cards for an extra action for Seamus. That may actually be enough damage, 8 damage to win, I believe, yes. So that potion spell I forgot about when I saw it in Huamin's hand, but I believe that does do 4 damage, which paired with the other spell will be enough to win the match. Yes, that was pressing the knot, which is 4 damage to an opponent, and then that opponent cannot play creatures their next turn, so that is 4 damage, and that card in theory would work really well against Fanny's deck, but there's already 5 creatures out. So while Fanny did take 13 damage from that, and it looks like, not sure if Huamin is going to draw the 5 cards as part of the prize or not, but Fanny doesn't need to worry about playing creatures next turn, so pressing the knot, yes, it's great because it's going to prevent him from playing more, but when they've already got 8 damage a turn from creatures just sitting in play, playing 1 more creature isn't really necessary. It's nice, but it's okay if they have to skip 1 turn. Huamin did take the draw 5 from winning the match, got 2 fouled, which is pretty great, and has a healing card, Immaculate Concoction, in their hand. Any little bit of healing could really help with this because that creature damage is going to be a lot. So overall, this is a decent space for Huamin to be in for next turn, depending on what they can do against all those creatures. Huamin does take 8 damage, goes down to 12 cards in deck. And Fanny is going to play a Steel Claw. That might do it. Huamin does take 8 damage and goes down to 4 in his deck. While that's not necessarily game, that's going to be really hard to come from. So Fanny's going to play a Lesson and then throw out a Steel Claw, which will make all of their creatures do damage. That's 8 more damage. Huamin, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to come back from this or not. I think even if they healed with Immaculate Concoction, they still lose on their next turn. and especially drawing cards with those 2 revelations that just went into play, or that he just discarded for Seamus's ability. That's going to put them at 1, and I don't think anything in their hand is going to be able to pull it back. Nope, and Huamin concedes, so that is a 2-0 victory for Fanny and their McGonagall creature deck. That was a great game, just seeing those creatures swarm into play. We got to see the match go off a couple of times. Unfortunately, Huamin just could not make it go off repeatedly. There are a lot of pieces to it to make it go off, and you really have to draw enough cards to make that work. It was awesome to see that combo work. Combo decks are a little weaker in this tournament just because there's so much removal and then quicker decks that play creatures, but seeing this combo was awesome. And seeing all the creatures was great. We saw the baby Acromantula just search for other creatures, which was really awesome. That's a great way to swarm the field again. We saw Black Bat doing the damage. We saw Cornish Pixie providing a little bit of control to the opponent by getting rid of a card in their hand. Overall, really great plays there by both players. We'll see what happens to both players in round 2. Thanks everybody for watching, and good luck to both players.